Hey guys, what is going on? So today I wanted to talk about a training technique I've been using over the past few weeks and something I also used years ago. And it's a very potent way to add size and strength pretty quickly. And I wanted to share the style that I'm currently using, and I want to talk about a version that I did years ago as well, and kind of talk about my way of thinking on how this is actually effective in a world where everything is evidence-based and everything is about limiting fatigue. How can we implement this strategy and how is it actually beneficial when it just doesn't seem like it would be? So the method that I'm talking about is German volume training. And in this specific instance, we are trying to do 10 sets of 10. But the general idea of this style of training, whether you call it German volume training or something else, it doesn't really matter. Essentially, the way that I think about this is doing many sets, many reps, little rest period, and just accumulating a lot of volume with quite a bit of that volume not really being super intense. So again, we're kind of honing in on that volume side of things and taking away the intensity aspect of it, at least during those initial sets. Now, as you progress throughout this, it does get significantly harder. But at that point, you're kind of pushing your mind and the maximum intensity and the max, motor unit recruitment that you're getting is probably pretty minimal from a technique like this. That being said, I have found that it actually seems to improve my strength a decent amount, even on lifts that I'm not doing it on. It seems to improve muscle size. And I feel like it's just a very fast way to accumulate size and strength, and it just doesn't seem to agree with modern science of everything being a close proximity to failure and mechanical tension being the king. It just seems to kind of be the exact opposite of that style of training. You can call it fatigue maxing if you wanted to, but again, I find this technique to be beneficial. And the coolest thing about this is not a style of training that you do across the board. This is not something, I mean, sure, you could do German volume training across the board, but the way that I'm talking about this training method, it's simply throwing this in 1 day a week. It takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes to do one of these kind of sessions, like they're, multiple sets kind of lumped in together. I guess you could call it a giant set in one way. But at the end of the day, it's a very good bang for your buck efficiency way to, in my opinion, put on a good amount of muscle, put on some good size. And if you're not completely afraid that the fatigue boogeyman is coming to get you and is going to steal all your gains, again, it's a good technique to add on to your higher intensity techniques and get some more volume in without, in my opinion, it's not all that fatiguing. So the way that I like to implement this, and again, the German volume training doesn't have to be this exact way of doing it, but the way that I personally do this is I just pick a weight that's relatively easy. If I'm going to do a set of 10, maybe I can do a set of like 17, 18, 19 reps with that weight. I mean, it doesn't matter all that much. You'll find that you'll progress through this relatively quickly if you underload in the beginning. But you essentially do a set of 10, rest 30 seconds, do another set of 10, rest 30 seconds, do another set of 10. Do as many sets as you can do. Once you fail, then you're done. So this may cause you to fail in 3 sets, in which case you probably should have picked a lower weight. It may cause you to fail in 7 sets. And essentially that's your set. That's your kind of workout in that scenario. So typically this takes, depending on how many rest periods you have. Like if you're doing 10 sets, obviously you're getting like about 5 minutes of rest and then whatever time period is tacked on top of that in terms of doing the actual sets. But for the most part, you're probably doing somewhere between like 3 to 8 sets. So that rest period is going to be a little bit shorter. So this typically takes 3 to 5 minutes, I would say. And this is something I just throw in on my free day. So I have kind of like 5 structured days and then one free day. My free days kind of, I just do like some chest and some arms, whatever I really feel like doing. And it's not really about progression all that much for me, even though I do progress on my lifts. And in this, particular instance, I started out doing concentration curls. And what I noticed is that when I started doing this when I was in Hawaii, which is the reason I started doing this is because I had to get a little creative. Um, I started doing this just to get a whole bunch of volume in the gym in a short period of time so I could get back to vacation. And what I found is that when I got back from my trip, I was really strong when it came to like all my bicep exercises. I was noticing my rate of progression was going pretty fast. And I just continued to throw that in on my free days since I got back. And my progression in my bicep lifts, which have kind of been stagnating. I mean, I have been progressing, but it's been a relatively slower progression relative to other lifts. I found that when I started implementing this German volume training, you'd think I'd be fatigue maxing and my motor unit recruitment would be absolutely horrible and my lifts would go down, but the opposite happened. My strength increased. Looks like my bicep size increased. Just seems to be good across the board. Now, I've also implemented this strategy or a similar-ish strategy a few years ago when I was working with my coach in the past. He had me do them with tricep row pushdowns as well as leg extensions. So I would say in general, these exercises are good for isolation lifts and they're good for something that is a little bit more of a contraction based lift. If we do something that's really stretch focused, or we do something that is like a compound lift, I think this could potentially cause more harm than good, depending on the lift. Or you may find, like, let's say you do some dumbbell flies or something like that. You may be able to do this one week, and then your next workout may be affected because you caused a lot of muscle damage in a scenario like that. Did a whole bunch of stretch focused stuff, did a whole bunch of volume. You might not be able to do that every week. You may be able to work up to the point where you can do it every week, but you probably shouldn't be doing this a whole bunch with stretch focused lifts. And again, with compound lifts, I probably wouldn't start that way. Now, you may be able to progress to that over time, but the way that I've personally done it, again, it's just been isolation lifts, short and bias lifts that are on a cable, very safe, not dangerous or anything like that. And again, during the time period that I was doing this, that was probably the fastest tricep growth I ever saw. And again, this was about 3 years ago, and I was working with my coach before. And I did this with leg extensions. That's when my legs really blew up, was when I started implementing those techniques. And my strength at that time was also extremely good. And so I didn't find that it was, fatiguing me too much where I couldn't complete my other lifts. And I don't remember exactly in terms of my rate of progression back then, but I can say as I've been implementing this for my biceps and I just started doing with my triceps, I have noticed my rate of progression on my bicep and tricep isolations has gone up. So seems to be working really well in that regard. I do feel like my arms are just getting bigger much faster than normal. And I just think it's really easy volume. Again, I just throw it in on my free day. Maybe you have one day a week where you have a bro day and you do chest and arms. Like, hey, maybe you throw in 1 or 2 sets of this German volume training. And again, these sets can be anywhere from, like, maybe you're doing 3, maybe you're doing 7. Once you get 10, you progress in weight. And my theory on why this works, and I was talking with a buddy of mine who gave me the idea to actually do this. Um, I think it's that everything that we do in terms of going really intense in our training is preferentially treating our high threshold motor units, our fast twitch muscle fibers, and those are the ones that have the most potential for growth. However, just because our slow twitch fibers do get worked when we activate those high twitch muscle fibers doesn't mean that they're getting the maximum stimulus that they could. And generally speaking, slow twitch fibers are fatigue resistant, they require more volume, and even though their threshold to be able to grow and produce force is not as good as a fast twitch muscle fiber, it's still something. And when we're talking about being really advanced in trying to eke out those little, like, pound or two gains of muscle every year, or maybe 3 or 4, wherever you're at in your journey, getting those incremental gains can be really important. And so I think that is something that really kind of separates people who have gotten maybe 80 to 90% of their potential versus the people who get really, really close to their potential, right? And I don't think anybody really reaches their full potential, but some people get a lot closer than others. And I remember I saw a study, and I don't remember where it was. I don't know if it's actually legit, but they were basically saying high level bodybuilders have very developed slow twitch fibers. And I think it is a combination of maxing out your fast twitch and your slow twitch together. And even though it's more efficient to just go for the fast twitch, I think the slow twitch can be beneficial. So that's kind of my theory on that. I feel like it's worth trying. It only takes, if you're doing 1 to 2 exercises, this takes max of 10 minutes a week. Pretty easy to throw in at the end. You get a ton of volume in, and it's not that much work. You do it at the end of your workout. You do not need to be fresh for this. In fact, again, you're focusing on those slower twitch muscle fibers. You don't really care about, implementing the highest intensity techniques or being, having no fatigue. Now, people think maybe that fatigue is going to carry into your next workout, stuff like that. Hasn't been my experience, but that would kind of be the only downside. So I feel like it's so good in terms of bang for your buck. And it's kind of one of the things when people talk about drop sets working, it's like, oh, well, why do drop sets work? It's so fatiguing, but I mean, drop sets seem to work for people. So I think German volume training, this style, whatever it is that I'm talking about, whatever you want to call it, something that I, again, have been throwing into my training has been working really well. And I would definitely recommend giving it a try if you have a plateau. Seems to work really good for arms in my experience. I haven't really experimented outside of that other than when I worked my quads this way, and that seemed to work really well. So probably when push comes to shove and I really want to grow my quads, I will start doing that on leg extension. But I will tell you, the leg extension version of this is absolutely brutal. So take that and do what you will with it. But I think it's a pretty good technique. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I'll keep you updated and I'll talk to you soon.